Hi guys, it's Jacob from Stringbuzz here, stringbuzzworld.org being a music journalism site, links are in the description down below. And we have a brand new discursive type topic for you today. It's been a little while since we've done one of these, and that's do the charts mean anything anymore? So I'm going to refer to the original article as I usually do for these videos, so I hope you enjoy. Now, it's a common perspective of the modern day music listener to pan what's currently in the charts and label anything / everything which is generic or poppy as simply chart trash. It's an ideal and a way of thinking that has been around for as long as I can personally remember with my friends, family, etc. But from what I do know, it hasn't always been that way. Whereas the charts was a literal collection of the most successful songs by sales in the past, now we take into account such things as video views and how many of those video views actually make up a singular sale. Murmurs over here in the UK suggest that the new count will be up to 150 views per sale, a figure I'm glad to see rise, as I felt 100 was proving perhaps a little untrue / unjust to the amount of sales the actual record was getting. With so many outside influences on the charts and labels that come with the artists which are often featured in said charts, is it so strange to ask the question of, does anybody really care about the charts anymore? Excluding the terribly run rock charts and album charts here in the UK, I think the best way of dissecting this is by looking at the two biggest charts, the Billboard chart and the UK Top 40 chart. Is there a reason why these successful artists are often thrown into a category which should be more favourable to them than it actually is? I think it comes down to three different instigating factors for me: repetitiveness, predictability, and exhaustion. Now, these three terms might seem a little broad, and again, I'm not personally knocking the charts because they still play a functional role in the music industry today, but I do think these ideologies do come into play when the average music listener tries to sum up what chart music really is. Starting with repetitiveness, it's becoming increasingly obvious that the charts are way too heavy with the same artists over and over. Not to knock what those artists have achieved and what they've managed to create, but since the introduction of video views and the media hype train behind these almost deity-like figures, people seem to find the charts' behaviour quite repetitive. When Ed Sheeran releases an album, is it really necessary to have every single track on that album feature so highly one after another on said chart? In one sense of the idea, yes, of course, it's understandable. If he's outselling everyone and his video views are destroying everyone in his genre around in the pop music scene, then he should be there. If the sales say that, then he should be there. But in another mind, the media is given free advertising out of the wazoo when it comes to his music, the same music that of course is going to make those sales, as each track is sold both individually as well as on the album. When you have an album of 10 to 15 different singles that can all be sold and have been sold separately, then that's what's going to happen. The charts are going to look like a repetitive mess. Thanks to this, we often have artists featuring 6 or 7 times in one charting week in the top 10 alone, simply down to a singular album release full of tracks that can be sold separately. Would it make such a big difference if you perhaps limited an album just to the one single featuring on the charts? Personally, I think it would, and it would allow for more competition for those releasing during the same weeks as these media Goliaths. And I think if each album just had the 1 or perhaps 2 at most singles instead of having 10 to 15 singles, I think you'd have a much more competitive chart system. Predictability is somewhat in the same form really, but perhaps even more media based. When you have an artist who consistently rakes in millions of video views every single time they just release a video, due to having a massive subscriber base also in the millions, of course they're going to kill it when it comes to video views, and I think that will inflate their sales quite dramatically. Then when you pair that up with countless review copies, the media machine driving each release to the moon way before it's even near releasing, and paid reviewers pushing the album way before the release as well with inflated scores that have been paid off, as I've already said, people can predict the charts way before they even happen. I can bet you right now that the next album Adele releases will go straight to #1 regardless of the album's quality and response to said album, and probably each track on that track list will be released as a single and they'll fill up the entire top 10 of the UK Top 40. And yes, I know she has a huge reputation and she has more than just a few critically acclaimed tracks in her discography, but when you can predict artists hitting #1 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years time just from reputation alone, that makes the charts feel a little dull dull and a little less exciting to follow. And I think there's many reasons for that. I mean, if subscribers and review copies were taken into consideration and the media was a little less biased and weighted when it came to releases, do you think charts would change all too much? Personally, I think if you averaged out the subscribers or looked at the subscriber to view ratio ahead of each release, it could make a huge impact on the fairness of the charts and how upcoming acts can rival those big ones regardless of their current position. I think if you took the subscribers away and you actually analysed how many subscribers per video view that they're getting, and you could come to some sort of medium so that everybody's back on a level basis and a level playing field, or just took video views away altogether, I think the charts again would be more competitive, hence meaning they'd be less predictable. Exhaustion is also a huge factor, and I think many people have been exhausted for years now when it comes to the charts. People are buying much less music now. You don't need me to tell you that. You probably already know that. People have more exposure to many more artists now and critics' opinions now. No longer do people care what the charts are really up to because people are exhausted of seeing the same names over and over feature with multiple tracks. Back in the day, we were given some terrible and some great one-hit wonders that hit the charts at incredibly high positions as well, simply down to their situation and appeal to a broad audience at that time. They sold well, they did well, and people enjoyed seeing their names up there with the bigger acts. Now, I think that's much more difficult to do in the current scope of things, since views are almost being introduced as an almost currency-like way of buying your way into the charts. You can bet right now that each Rihanna video will get over 100 million views consistently. Each Sia track will get 1 million in a day easily, and each Ariana Grande track will get to 20 million by the end of the week. When it's that obvious and that predictable, and the formula is that repetitive, then of course people are going to be exhausted by seeing these names reaching the charts months before they've even released the tracks from said album. The only way I can see this being stabilized is by taking away the video to sale conversion. I know that's a controversial opinion, and that is stepping things backwards. I know that it was meant to be a step in the right direction, but if you want a level playing field full of artists who have made a product that people actively want to buy and promote, then the video view idea will be against them constantly, because they will always be a step behind these deity-like figures I've already mentioned. There is another factor which I didn't really mention about earlier in this video / even in the original article, which I think is worth talking about, and that is one which often people actually argue about quite a bit, so I'm a bit sort of hesitant when it comes to this, but that being the quality of the chart music. Now, on a literal basis, the charts should be the best of the best when it comes to music, or at least of a high enough quality to get to that position in the first place. However, like Oscar bait movies are to the movie industry, I personally think the quality of the charts is lower for a good reason. A lot of songs are made purposely for the charts, especially by artists like Chris Brown, who pump out a new track every single week. You can't tell me that has too much thought to it, and are made to sell rather than actually being good and permanent, just temporary and made to, rack up those figures. Commercialism in music does exist. Pandering in music does exist. Bandwagoning and jumping on a trend exists in the music industry today, and that's why I think there is a quality deficit at the moment when it comes to chart music. When you hear a generic pop track made by a big artist that isn't too memorable and isn't too catchy and fans aren't responding to it very well, yet it's taking off big time in the charts, I think that's a perfect example of music made with a goal. There are formulas of attaching a name to a type of track and that release being set to a goal of reaching a certain chart number. That's why songs have over 20 songwriters involved. That's why songs have over 5 producers involved. That's why songs have so much label and studio tampering constantly involved. They want to make a product sound best for the charts and the casual ear rather than best for the artist and their fans. Anyone who tries to denounce that the process of commercializing a track just isn't real is just plain wrong, in my opinion. You can make Oscar bait films, and you can certainly make chart bait songs. I mean, let's face it, you only have to look at Linkin Park's past few releases to spot these differences. With music listeners feeling constantly exhausted with those constantly reaching the charts, finding the names predictable and repetitive with each new release blowing up, also noticing that there is a quality deficit that constantly occurs with these same artists with a particular label or artist, is it any wonder why so many people don't care about the charts anymore? I mean, let's face it, do the charts mean anything anymore? So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this is a bit of a broad topic and it's got a very broad spectrum, and I only really hit the surface when it comes to it. It's obviously much more complicated than I'm trying to make it out to be, and there are things that are constantly changing when it comes to the charts, and everybody's opinion is different, and I hope my points were direct and concentrated enough so that you could understand where I'm coming from here. But I'd love to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. I think the charts are a big talking point at the moment when it comes to music. We talked about it in the Music Chatter podcast recently when it comes to the rock charts, so if you want to hear some real ranting, then I definitely recommend you go check out that video. But yeah, I'd love to hear your opinions in the comment section down below on whether there's anything you would change about the charts, anything you like about the charts, anything you currently hate about the charts. If you like this video, then please leave a like, subscribe to see more, and I'll see you around next time. Bye bye.